Everybody wanted the basketball in their hands but Kawhi. And now they're in the NBA Finals. It's amazing what they've been able to do. So KD traveled to Toronto. Still a lot of speculation if he's going to be able to play. Doesn't look like he's going to be in game 1. Maybe a chance on Sunday for game 2. Also, DeMarcus Cousins has been practicing for the Warriors, trying to make a comeback. So if they get one or both of these guys back, Eric, how much does that change what the Warriors have been doing? And do you ultimately like that?
Oh, boy. I really don't like it for the Warriors. If I'm a Warriors fan, I don't really want them coming in right now.
Isn't that amazing?
It is.
That you're thinking that two guys that were a couple years ago considered top 10 players in the league, and you're like, I don't know if they really need them.
Absolutely. It is crazy. And it's not that they aren't good players. I mean, we've kind of talked about that over and over and over.
Yeah.
Boogie Cousins, he's got value on the market. KD obviously has tremendous value on the market. There's no reason you wouldn't want them out on the floor, except for the fact that what we've seen over the last 6 games is the Warriors operating the way that the Warriors can. Do you really want to mess that up? That groove that they're in, that confidence that they've built? Do you really want to slow Steph and Clay down again from the tempo and pace at which they're shooting the 3 ball and being so efficient and all over the floor? Because I just think that if you can get through game 1 or game 2 and all of a sudden you've got a 2-0 lead, maybe you just don't bring Boogie back, or maybe you bring Durant back, but you don't bring Cousins back. I mean, I don't know. That's going to be one of the toughest things for Kerr to decide. But to me, Justin, this is going to be a very interesting finals. Each game dictates the next move. It's kind of like a game of chess where you don't really know the whole strategy, but you kind of have some things planned out ahead. And for me, I think the Warriors have to take it one game at a time. If they are playing great basketball with this old core, Curry, Thompson, Draymond, I don't know why you would mess that up. I really don't.
It still just boggles my mind that we're talking about, like, well, maybe KD's not the best to bring back. But when you think about this, that Golden State could go in, be up 2-0, go back home, and KD could return, what would happen if they got beat? And you talked about earlier with the thin skin that Kevin Durant has, and they would go in and lose a game, and the backlash that would be out there of all this talk from the media of, oh my gosh, the Warriors were up 2-0 and they had won 7 straight games, and then KD comes back and they immediately lose. Like, that would be worst case scenario for KD.
And what if he plays bad in the loss? I mean, because then how do you backtrack? How do you bring him back in game 3?
You can't.
And then say, well, now you're benched for game 4. You can't do that.
Right. You can't do that. That's the other point for KD is the way the Warriors are operating right now. Now they've had, which will be 9 days rest. So you wonder, are they going to come out fresh in game 1 or are they going to come out rusty? That will be what to watch, how they come out, because it's tough for shooters. They're going to be on the road in a gym they don't play at a lot because, again, this is an Eastern Conference team, so they're only going there one time a year. So it's not like they have a ton of experience playing in Toronto. So it's going to be a different look. I know they've gotten time to shoot around, but you just wonder the layoff factor. Toronto coming off of a tough series, but they've had a few days rest, but they didn't have to travel, and their crowd's going to be going nuts. The first finals they're going to be in. So there's going to be a lot of factors that are out there of how the Warriors are going to come out. But if somehow, Eric, they would win 4 in a row and they would sweep Toronto and KD couldn't make it back, what does that do for the legacy of KD in Golden State, that without him, they were able to pull a sweep or a win off in the finals and get another ring and not have had him since halfway through the second round?
Yeah, well, a couple things there. First, I want to, good point on the series, because Jurassic Park's a very tough place to play. So certainly the Warriors are going to have a challenge when they come to Jurassic Park. I think one of the better arenas in the league, to be honest with you, outside of Oracle, where Golden State plays. So I think this is going to be a really fun home crowd environment series. It's going to be tremendous TV to watch. But the Warriors have been to 4 straight. They're 3-time champions. I really don't think a 9 or 8 day layoff or whatever it's been is going to affect them. If that does affect them, that would just be crazy to me, because they have enough experience. I mean, 5 championship appearances in a row. A 9-day layoff shouldn't be any different than a 4-day layoff, in my opinion. Now, to your second point, though, if this goes the way of... Well, actually, let me back up a little bit, because I want to answer your question, but I want to speak to this coming from a different angle. Justin, it was surreal to me to watch the Warriors celebrating the Western Conference Championship in that locker room. You had the blue background, you had the team photo, you had everybody smiling and laughing and wearing the t-shirts and the hats and everything, champagne flowing and everything like that. They were all in the mix, but there was one face that wasn't present. and that was Kevin Durant. And to me, that was the moment where I just kind of looked at the TV and saw that roster and said, they don't need him. And so to your point, now you go to the finals. If you get through this finals, either without Kevin Durant or he plays a little bit but doesn't play great and you still win, I think that seals the fate for Kevin Durant, because he's now got to go and be the leader of his own team. It's a story that's waiting to be written, Justin, and I don't mean the ESPN stories that are waiting to be written. I mean just the legacy stories that are waiting to be written, to your point, that if you're KD, you came and you got your championships, you're likely going to get your third ring this year, whether you participate in the finals or not. Obviously, he's a big piece of why they're there in the first place. But if you play a little bit or you don't play at all, and they're holding that trophy at the end of the day, I think to me that says everything. If he doesn't play and they lose, now how does that play into Kevin Durant's legacy? Then maybe he has a standing to where he says, well, they couldn't get it done without me. So for me, this is just a really dire situation for Durant. Yeah, he's one of the greatest basketball players that ever played. But to me, this coming series says a lot about his career. Did he just jump on a roster and become a champion, or do they really need him? That's the question.
What you rolled out there, that if he doesn't play and they lose this series, that's by far the best situation for him to be in. Because if they go up 2-0 and he comes back and then they pull the sweep, the talk is going to be, well, did they even need him? Like, he's going to have to do something in the games he plays really over the top. And then if he doesn't play any in this series, which guys like Rick Bucher have talked about, that there's a very good chance that you may not see him again in a Golden State uniform, period. That if they get through these playoffs, that he may not play and then he'll go right into free agency. And everyone expects him to leave, even though his agent's trying to say he doesn't know, which seems completely unbelievable to me, that we're in almost to June and Kevin Durant doesn't know where he's going to go in a month. I just don't believe that.
Well, I don't think they want to talk about that in the media halfway through an NBA Finals series.
No, they don't want to talk about it. And he's doing what he's doing. But at some point, as his agent, do you even need to talk about it at all? Just push it away. Oh, well, you know what? We're not even thinking about that right now. We're worried about the injury, focusing on that. Not like, well, Kevin really doesn't have any idea what he's going to do. I find that more unbelievable than the fact that he's focusing on getting back on the court. But if they somehow win a ring without him, I mean, that's just the worst case scenario for a guy like Durant, because then you start to look at, well, okay, what happens now with the other two? Where does that put him in the pantheon of basketball? How are we going to rank what he's done? Because it's kind of been my argument about LeBron when he had to go to Miami with Wade and Bosh to get rings. And then he needed Kyrie and Love to get rings in Cleveland. Now he's in LA and they need to get more talent in. And that kind of takes to the next question, Eric. If somehow Kawhi Leonard leads this team past the Warriors, where does that rank in terms of upsets, or how is that going to elevate Kawhi's legacy in this game?
Well, as far as upsets, as good as Kawhi is and as great as he's played in these playoffs, I would still say it's one of the greatest upsets of all time, just because I can't sit here and talk about how great the Warriors roster is, even with their big three, Curry, Thompson, and Draymond. And then maybe with KD or maybe with Cousins or Iggy or more, you know, they've got lots of pieces there. I cannot sit here and say how great they are and then say that if Toronto wins, that it's not somehow the greatest upset of all time. I think it certainly would be. So really where you go from there is that Kawhi gets paid. I mean, at that point, he just absolutely...
Well, Kawhi's getting maxed out anyways. Kawhi gets to go get maxed out. It's just what team he's going to go to.
That's it. He just gets paid and he gets solidified for the rest of his career. It's hard to bump him up legacy-wise with one championship. There's a lot of guys who have won one championship, but you know it's not a big factor in their career in terms of their overall body of work. And Kawhi's been in the league a long time, and now that would give him his second championship, of course. So I'm just talking about one with Toronto. But either way, if they were to pull that off, it would be huge for Kawhi's career, because I think it sends him, either whether through Toronto or a different team, it sends him to the place he probably finishes his career.
Doesn't it feel a little bit like the New England Patriots when they played against the Rams in Brady's first Super Bowl? Like here was this run and gun style that nobody had been able to stop through the regular season. And here you got a team with basically one guy on it, and they like to play this slow down pace and defense. It kind of reminds me of that.
Sure. Sure. That's a great analogy.
And it kind of feels like if he can pull this upset and have to do it over 7 games, it's probably a bigger upset than even that was, but it kind of has that feel to it. Looking at what Golden State is going to do, obviously they're going to look at the Philly game tape and Milwaukee, but Iguodala dealing with an injury himself. Draymond doesn't seem like a great matchup for Kawhi. So do you think Golden State goes out and makes an effort to try to stop Kawhi and throw a lot of doubles at him and make other guys beat them? Or do they go the other way and kind of let Kawhi get his and not let guys like Van Fleet go crazy? And if, hey, Kawhi gets 40, 45, 50 points like LeBron did on him, no big deal as long as everybody else is staying in check.
Yep, I go with the second option there because I think you're going to expend a lot of useless energy going after Kawhi all the time when Toronto's roster just, I mean, they're good, but they're not deep enough to burn you all over the court. So you've got depth with the Warriors. That's one of your strengths. And so Golden State, I think they just let Kawhi go for 30 points and 12 rebounds and whatever, 6 assists. You let him have that. But if you shut down Lowry, and if you shut down Gasol, if you shut down Van Fleet, if you shut down those guys, I think you've got the game, and I think you've got the series. So to me, the Warriors' depth is a strength in this series, and I think it's going to be the difference maker. You've seen Milwaukee get up on Toronto in those last couple of games, and then Toronto brings it back.
Just couldn't put them away.
And then they get up, by a couple, and then they have the fight to hold on and win by 6 points in a lot of those games, like I talked about earlier in the show. So for the Warriors, you look at that and you say, okay, we can get up on them just like Milwaukee did, but then if we shut them down all over the court and let Kawhi get his, they'll never catch back up. And if we're at a deficit, we've already dealt with that. We're not scared of that either. So I think the Warriors just have the depth, and that's their strength to win this series.
I agree with you. I think they already have some kind of blueprint from what they've done in the past from all those years facing LeBron, and the fact, a topic that's come up that we've discussed, you can't let players like Kawhi or like LeBron go out and score 30, 35, 40 points and have 7, 8, 10, 12 assists as well. You either got to let them score their points or you got to try to shut them down and make other people beat you. You can't let them do both. You can't let them get going and get their teammates and going. That's a recipe for disaster. I look for him to do the same thing, not throw a lot of doubles at him, just try to match up one-on-one, try to slow him down, make him work hard, just try to wear him out, run him through a lot of screens. If they're going to put him on Clay, for example, just try to wear him out all game long because he's going to have to play 40-plus minutes. And if he's still nicked up with some kind of leg injury that he's not really talking about, that's not going to help it to have to play that much of a load in these series and on the offensive and defensive side. The weirdest question I think I may have had to ask you on this show or talk about is the Drake factor in Toronto, but it's definitely something that's real. You talked about the fact that that arena in Toronto with the Jurassic Park outside, as crazy as those fans are going, and let's face it, nobody really cares about the Blue Jays, so it's all about the Raptors right now in Toronto. So how much of a factor is this? Has Drake just become like the official mascot of the Raptors now? Is that what we're going with now? Or is he just the new age version of Spike Lee or Jack Nicholson?
Yeah, I was going to say that. He's definitely the new age version of like a Spike Lee. Even Jack wasn't quite as animated as Spike Lee, and now Drake has taken it to a whole different level.
Giving the coach massages on the sideline.
Yeah, to me, it's gotten to be mascot level, though, because of how goofy it is. You know, he's almost crossing the line even in what's appropriate. Not just the massages, that's just weird. But the fact that you have any civilian or outsider that's that close to the bench and the coaches and everything during the 48 minutes of basketball, to me it's borderline inappropriate. To me, I just don't need it. But if it's not affecting Toronto negatively, then whatever, let it be. But he's kind of making a fool of himself, to be honest, in my eyes.
He definitely gets that crowd going. The coaching staff for Toronto doesn't seem to mind it. There was an article out that the NBA had conversations about him and some of the antics, because let's face it, Eric, if that was you or I out there, we'd be getting drug out by multiple security guards on national TV, no questions asked. If we touched a coach or were that close to the sideline or were yelling stuff at opposing players, no other fans are allowed to do that. You saw Russell Westbrook this year with all the stuff with him about the fans. We saw stuff in Utah going on with the way fans interacted with players, and that was at a whole different level. But notwithstanding the fact that Drake is a celebrity, he kind of gets away with it, and it's just accepted because He's a guy from Toronto. It's a big part of his music and that genre up there, and they seem to just love him. The crowd goes crazy. He gets them hyped up. I don't think Toronto as an organization